and now I'm back in Vegas.
Awesome. Hey, Mike, I'm sorry, but I didn't press the record button.
Sean!
I apologize. All we got is you're back here in Vegas. Could you explain one more time your background?
Yeah.
Um, and then also, I think you didn't mention your training background. I know
Yes.
that you're a trainer in different fields, so
Yes.
that's also one of the reasons I didn't press the record button right away.
So one more time. um, I'm a Las Vegas shooting survivor of the 2017 Country Harvest Festival shooting. That's when we go into security in the first place. So I'm going on my 7th, technically 8-year private security, depending on how you want to look at it. My entire career thus far, I say I have 7 to 8 years of unarmed experience. Within my career, I've carried a weapon for 5, going on 6 years of that. I'm a former federal government contractor within the federal government contract sphere within private security. I was a FAA, Department of Transportation security contractor. I was all over the U.S. Guarding air traffic control towers, and at the same time, I was a 1811 federal investigator. I went through the Homeland Security course in Georgia. I was a fully credentialed badge and gun internal affairs investigator. So I had a very unique role within that private security contract where, yes, I was a security officer. I was a uniformed federal contractor. But at the same time, I was also a federal investigator. So I was more or less acting as internal affairs within that security contract at times. So I left the FAA in Utah, and my most recent job within Utah was as a global security operations center operator. Well, I prefer the term watch officer. We don't like the term operator. So I always say I was a watch officer within a GSOC. And then for those who aren't aware of my channel, I got yanked off that security contract. So I got yanked out of my GSOC role, and that's when I elected to move back to Vegas. Basically, I kind of had to cut bait and run in Utah because I was assessing my situation. And I'm like, I literally financially cannot afford Utah because my rent and everything was more or less hinging on that. So I moved back to Vegas January last month, and I was immediately rehired by my favorite private security employer in Vegas. And so I've been with them ever since I came back to Vegas.
Awesome. So glad to see you get back on your feet. I mean, I've been watching your journey. I know that you had a sufficient subscriber account on your initial YouTube channel. So I've been following you for the last couple of years. So glad that you're able to get back on your feet. Okay. So can you tell us about your training background? Because I've been following you, and you have all kinds of instructor level credentials that are pretty impressive when you compare those credentials to what some of us have and what we don't have in the private security sector.
Yeah, so rattling everything off right off the bat, I'm an ASP, AIC, and AIC, to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, more or less just stands for ASP Integrated, either certificate or credential, but more or less ASP AIC. I'm a baton handcuffing, and they call it tactical flashlight. I say defensive flashlight. I'm a defensive flashlight instructor through ASP Armament. Armament Systems and Procedures is their full title. So I have a baton I have a baton instructor credential through the ASP baton manufacturer. I'm a Sabre International aerosol irritant projector, fancy way of saying OC cans. I'm a can instructor. And at the same time, last year, I took the 4th ever Sabre .68 pepperball munitions course. So I took the 4th ever class that was actually in Utah, which is why I took it. I was like, oh, it's local. Cool. But when I got in the class, the deputy warden that was giving out the class actually was like, you are of a handful of people that have taken the Sabre class because this is brand freaking new. Sabres just rolling out our less lethal rifles, less lethal launchers, verbiage. So yeah, I'm a Sabre OC can and 68 instructor. And then lastly, I'm a Taser public safety instructor through their law enforcement branch of Axon. So I'm an Axon law enforcement Taser instructor credentialed to instruct security and actually law enforcement as well in the X26P/X1, since they got rid of the 26P and decided to rename it to something else. I'm an X1. I'm a X2. So I'm a single shot, multi-shot at the X1 and the X2. And at the same time, I can actually instruct people in what Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, most agencies in Clark County here in Nevada carry, the newer Taser 7. And then they, within Taser's sphere of things thus far, they are rolling out the Taser 10. However, I have spoken to Axon representatives. The Taser 10 is actually restricted to sworn law enforcement only. That model is brand spanking new, and it's actually still in beta testing. So they're restricting that to sworn LEO only.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting background. Have you, what states have you been in, or that you have to deal with, that regulate those types of courses that you would be offering?
Well, the state that I'm currently in, the state that I moved back to, Nevada, does not regulate training. So that's one state that I have a security license in.
Okay.
The state I just came from within Utah, Utah's DOPL, DOPL. So yeah, we have Nevada PILB, and then we have Utah DOPL. DOPL.
We talked about DOPL before.
Yeah, DOPL. Let me put it to you this way, for the sake of the live and all that. I gave up on trying to train people, and I gave up on ever having that thought, that dream of being an instructor in Utah, because more or less things were so heavily regulated with DOPL to where if you're not at the cool kids table, if you're not on this approved list of companies, you're not even allowed to instruct. There are no individual instructor lists. These are the companies on our list. If you're not on that list, we're giving you the finger. You're not allowed to do anything. And then at the same time, if anybody wants to become a private security instructor, they have to more or less become a lethal force instructor. You have to hold a fire. You have to
wait. Hold on. So if you want to teach less lethal, you have to be a lethal force instructor?
Correct.
Okay.
The continuing education requirements within the state of Utah are somewhat, I'd say, draconian and ridiculous in the fact that, yes, they have continuing education hour requirements. But at the same time, if you as an instructor want to, say, give a baton course and have that course count towards private security officers, you must have a firearms instructor credential. So more or less, if I want to give less lethal instruction, I have to be a lethal force. I have to be a firearms instructor. And I'm like, that's backwards to me. Things were ridiculous. I even emailed DOPL myself while I was in Utah. The email fell on deaf ears. So I basically just threw my hands up in the air and said, to heck with it. I'm giving up on this thought. My Utah license is good until November. I'm good for a couple more months. And honestly, obviously I'm not in the state anymore, but I had this thought in my head to where I was only going to be in Utah for the 2 years my license was active anyways. And so in my head, I more or less just came back to Las Vegas early. I was contemplating on not staying in Utah at all. And then, the GSOC, my Utah hysteria happened. That's been on my channel. It's been documented on my channel. I had my Utah hysteria, so I more or less moved back to Vegas in a hurry. But that was a thought that I was kicking around in my head anyways, just because the way Utah security works is simply ridiculous and makes no sense to me. It's worse than California, in my opinion.
Hey, Mike, didn't you tell me on occasion that there's only like 1 or 2 or 3 vendors that are authorized to certify you for firearms?
Correct. So there's a company that I worked for in Utah, All Pro Security. They're on the firearms list. There's a company called Raptor Security that doesn't do field patrol. They don't do, they don't do guard work. They provide strictly training. They're on the list to not only provide firearms renewal and firearms development, but they're literally the only ones in the state of Utah that you can kind of self-sponsor your way into firearms, into a firearms instructor roll through. Raptor gives a firearms instructor course. Outside of Raptor, if you want to become a firearms instructor, you either have to be post certified, such as yourself. You have to be Utah Post So basically, I have to be a police officer with credentials, or NRA law enforcement, or most recently, to my knowledge, they actually added the USCCA to their list of approved credentials. So if you're a USCCA instructor, you're good to go to become a firearms instructor with Utah Doppel Security Board as well. But yes, there are like 4 to 6 companies that are approved to. Pardon me. There are 4 to 6 companies that are more or less approved to give firearms development, firearms renewal, firearms, first time development, I call it. So yeah, there's only 4 to 6 companies. The company that I work for, All Pro Security, is one of them. But when I was an employee, most of us didn't know this. The reason why they were kind of finagling us and kind of giving us a runaround was they didn't have an instructor at the time.
Jeez.
So they were on the list, but pardon my French, most of us were shit out of luck, because it was like, we have a firearm credential. We're supposed to upkeep our licenses. We're supposed to have these continuing education requirements, etc. But the company itself didn't have an instructor at the time. So a lot of us were, by the letter of the law, so to speak, by the letter of the civil law, by the letter of the regulatory board ruling, we were out of compliance. We should have been slapped for it, because we were all like, oh, we're not meeting our firearms stuff. Every 6 months, you're supposed to go shoot. We didn't have our continuing education hours. So by the letter of the law, a lot of us should have been fined, slapped, however you want to call it. But yeah, a lot of us were out of compliance and falling behind because the company couldn't do anything. They didn't have the staff in the moment at that time.
Wow. I'm also thinking back at Raptor. It's like you have to get training by your potential competitor.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. I could just see them giving you some like ridiculous course of fire. Hey, go ahead, pistol qualification, 50 yards, headshot, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, and we all know how, at least in this security sphere within YouTube, we all know how we feel about 25, 50 yards, etc.
Right.
Yes, 25, 50 yards is a good goal, but at the end of the day, are you really going to need to fire at those distances? Because I'm not going to lie. I'm going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I'll own it on film. I would need a red dot for those distances. And I would say a red dot can be considered a crutch. But at those distances, I'm not developed enough to where I can reasonably, go irons at that distance. I would literally need an optic for that yardage.
Definitely. So Mike, also, okay, so you're back in Vegas. Can you tell us the difference in quality between the licensing board in Vegas and then licensing board in Utah?
Well, yeah. So the Utah board, I've kind of already talked on. The continuing education hour requirements. I always screw it up. The online training, and we'll get into that. I know the online training is DCEN or Defensify, but there's an online vendor that you have to go through at first within Utah to even get your security license to begin with. So you go through the Defensify online training for unarmed. And then every so often throughout the course of your 2-3 years of your security license, you're supposed to have continuing education. That can be gained through Defensify as well. The caveat to that is that's strictly for unarmed. Now, if you have a armed private security officer credential, if you're licensed to carry a firearm, you have 16 more hours of security instruction that you have to go through more or less in person. Online courses will not cut it. You have, because these are things involving the firearm. Low light. I know we're talking about low light a lot on YouTube lately within the security community. There's low light instruction that's an option. There's simple PowerPoint, sit down and talk, and then you got to go out to arrange and do all that. So the ARM portion of your continuing education is more or less skills based. Even if you do PowerPoints, as I know I just dropped a video either this morning or yesterday morning. I was sleeping, night shifts. Yeah, even if you do an online course, you're still expected to more or less, you're more or less supposed to show that you took that PowerPoint. You're supposed to practice and demonstrate competency. So there's still going to be a hands-on portion, so to speak, of that. Now, on the flip side, Nevada, PILB, I would equate it to the Wild West here, more or less. We have no continuing education hour requirements. If you're unarmed, you're unarmed. If you're armed, you're armed. The only I would say continuing education that Nevada has is every 6 months with PILB, you have a biennial shoot. You shoot twice a year. My shoots are June and December. Okay. So when I was in Utah, I had my ARM credential deactivated I had my Nevada PIOB credential deactivated. I got bumped down to unarmed because obviously I was in the state of Nevada. I missed my 2 shoots. So they bumped me down to unarmed only. I couldn't carry a firearm. Now that I'm back in Vegas, my security employer more or less got my credential back up in a hurry. And when I say in a hurry, I'm saying in the same darn week. I was in my employer's office on Tuesday. You can look me up in PILB, and if you go there to the top, it says public access. You can plug in my name, and you can that's another thing. Both Nevada and Utah, and I know California has this too because I looked at my father in the past. If you go into public access there on that board, you can plug somebody's name in. You can look them up.
Oh, right here. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can even file a complaint.
Yep, you can even file a complaint online, and so yeah, so you can look me up. My firearms credential is active, but when I tell people it was a very fast turnaround time, I'm not kidding. I was in my employer's office on Tuesday. That Thursday, I showed up in the database as, yep, my firearms are active. I'm good to go. I can carry again. Friday we started our event.
That's crazy. In California, we're waiting was it 2, 3, 4 months? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I took me because my employer, I'm lucky enough to where my director is also a certified firearms instructor. He can credential private security officers to carry a firearm. I'm lucky enough to where my director is on the CFI list for PILB. So I went through my director's course. We got me going. And that Friday was my first day of that Super Bowl event that I posted on my LinkedIn and kind of talked about here and there on my YouTube channel recently. But yeah, we were guarding these high LED, high laser projectors that were like $4 million a side. And there were 2 sides that we had to guard, and they were more or less being splashed onto a landmark within Las Vegas called the Stratosphere, the largest observation tower, the largest freestanding observation tower in the U.S. But these two projectors were splashing a Don Julio advertisement on the Stratosphere. So I was guarding projectors that were being used for a Super Bowl advertisement. So I could say I work Super Bowl security. Not at the stadium, but off-site, kind of in the background of the myriad of events that were going on during those shenanigans in Vegas. But yeah, we were guarding these projectors, and that's what I was doing the last month or so. Was I was doing Super Bowl security, guarding those projectors as they were being set up, and then during the bowl itself, actually the advertisement on the Stratosphere, we were guarding those projectors. So that's why I was going on 18-hour duty days, because it goes to my frustrations in this industry in general. We had no calls, we had call outs, we had people basically didn't want to show up left and right. So I was one of my director's go-tos. I was staying after. So I was working upwards of 18, 20-hour days at most, which is something that I am very careful doing because I was carrying a load of firearm that entire time. And if anybody's seen my YouTube, if anybody's seen my channel, you know how much I take carrying the ability to take a life seriously. So going on that long of those long shifts, carrying the ability to take a life, I don't take that lightly. I was on Red Bull, not going to lie, but I was being very careful in working those long hours.
Wow, those are a long shift for sure. Hold on real quick. Let me moderate the comments. It's like BSIS is here or something like that. All right, so
Yeah,
Westwell says Nevada's regulatory seems to value customer service. Yeah, that's what it seems like.
yeah,
Maybe
no,
less, maybe
100%.
less like public safety, I guess, and then they put public safety at the hands of the employers.
I would say that's actually a very good way of putting it. PIOB themselves, when you take your unarmed guard, when you take your class online, when you take the unarmed guard test, they will not let you move on until you get the question correct,
Mm,
which is a double-edged
wow.
sword. Yeah, which is a double-edged sword because I could just click until I get the right answer, or I can actually give a crap and take those tidbits in. But yeah, PILB themselves, more or less, I would say, prefers customer service and the competency standard, all that stuff that I have as instructor, the competency,
Mhm.
the standards of security are more or less left to the employers. Now, we know there's certain employers in Las Vegas that don't necessarily aren't up to par. I won't name them, but yeah.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. So Mike, you are a pepper spray instructor. What are your thoughts? And this leads to our last topic. What are your thoughts about online training? Like, what kind of courses should be offered online, and which ones should be done in person,
Well,
and why?
I will first off go by more or less going straight to deadly force. Deadly force is always in person. I will speak that hand on the Bible as an absolute. Firearms are in person. I don't care what anybody says. You need an RSO. You need a competent instructor. I mean, such as yourself. I mean, you're post certified, etc. I would feel better off with anybody who is going for a firearms credential. Do that in person. You need somebody more or less hovering over your shoulder, making sure their grip is fine, etc., etc. Those skills, I would say, hand on the Bible in person. OC, I know you and I have both made a video about that very topic, the online stuff today. I'd say online has its place. Certain things just need to be done in person. Now, yes, getting to pepper spray. There are certain things that I feel within OC instruction can be done online. But when it comes down to brass tacks, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of it, if I'm going to credential you to carry pepper spray, to put that on your belt, if I, as instructor, am going to put my name on your certificate and say you're good to go, knowing that I can get dragged into court because you are one of mine,
Right.
I want you to at least take inert spray, and not you being exposed to inert spray, you spraying a target or something. I want you to at the very least demonstrate you know what you're doing. So, the method of spraying eye to eye and all that, yeah, sure, that can be done death by PowerPoint, but when it comes down to it, there needs to be an in-person, more or less an in-person competency test, call it. Can you actually spray? Can you actually demonstrate the proper side to side? Because I know Saber has like 6 different delivery systems, and they've got like 3 or 4 different methods within Saber that you're supposed to carry. I know the side to sides for like gel and stream. The other stuff, well, I've spoken about cone delivery in the past. I've got those keychain ASP baton. The baton manufacturer actually makes pepper spray with cone. They tell you to aim for the nose, so it actually cones into the eyes. So that just goes into it. There are certain things that can be done online. Yes, we could talk about these delivery systems, the methods of this delivery system takes this method, etc., all day long. But I want to see with my own eyes that you can demonstrate those deliveries, those methods, what you're supposed to be, you know, with gel and stream side to side. The other stuff is the other stuff. I forget the methods offhand, but can you demonstrate those in person? Those are best left in person. Batons, again, I spoke about it in my video I think it was this morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Batons, I could teach you batons all day long through an online course. But if I give you an online course, do I know you actually know the 3 or 4 strikes that ASP teaches? Do I know you know those strikes. Can you actually hit the strike back properly? Can you actually show and demonstrate the methods? Can you demonstrate that you know the double strike, which is more or less a striking an X? That's one of the thing. It's one of the strikes that ASP teaches within the AIC instructor development series. Is can you demonstrate that double strike? Those are things that are done in person. And honestly, taser instruction for instructors within the Axon public safety credential, they do have an online workup to your in-person course, but that online workup is more or less going through the manual of every single taser launcher, taser implement that you're going to be credentialed to instruct in. So when I was becoming an Axon instructor in 2021 or 2022, I've lost track of what year it was at this point. The date's on my certificate.
Okay.
But when I was going through the X1, the X2, the Taser 7 and all that, we were going through the user manual more or less. That was the online workup to stuff. The in-person course was, here's the safeties. Here's how to split the belt. Here's all these things that are more or less the basics of operating a taser. Here's how to drop the battery. Here's how to take the cartridge out. And I've done it on numerous videos to where I will flat out take the cartridge out and I will put it behind my back as I'm sitting here sparking the taser one-handed, because anybody who has a taser, anybody who's operated a taser knows if a cartridge is anywhere near that device, you have the chance of detonating, setting off the cartridge.
Yes.
So I more or less consider a taser a live firearm. No ammo on your table, etc. I put the ammo far away from my actual taser when I'm sitting here, sparking it before a shift. There are times where I've had to spark it on shift, such as when I was doing the projector event. Las Vegas was getting down into like the 30s and 20s, and me being me, I'm awfully paranoid about my equipment. I was sparking it on post, but that's because I wanted to make sure the device was still good to go. It wasn't, too cold for the device to be able to reliably operate. So there's that. And I don't need to go into I don't need to go into batons as far as this context goes.
Right.
But yeah. And that's the civilian side.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
How do you get to the law enforcement? Like taser law enforcement, I type it on Google or something?
It's axon.com. Alpha X-ray Oscar November AXON.com. That would be the law enforcement branch online. Yep, Axon.
Okay. Oh, okay. This one right here.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's another thing that I can more or less stress, even though I think I've beat the horse to death on my channel. PSA, private security, since I have a wider reach. I'm kind of stealing the spotlight here. Private security, this is the website you need to go to. This is the instructor stuff you need to go through. These are the products you need to go through. I know I had my issues with one content creator in the past carrying a taser pulse. Taser pulse is meant to be discarded at the scene. The taser pulse is meant for civilian use, because it gives that 30-second ride. You're supposed to ditch the pulse at the scene and get out of the area. So yeah, that is a civilian implement meant for self-defense. This is not a law enforcement public safety. This is not a professional model. And I use that verbiage specifically because if you were to go back to the taser.com, if you were to go back to the civilian website, the law enforcement launchers that you should be using on taser.com, they're literally marked professional series. Okay. Those are the ones you should be using as private security. Yeah. You see it down there, professional series.
Oh, down here?
If you were to go back into wherever you were just now, there was like that drop down menu, whatever. If you were to go, I think it was shop. Yeah, shop. These are what you should be using.
Okay.
Now the X1 was the X26P as in Paul.
Okay.
That was the smart taser. I have the much older X26E, the law enforcement X26. That was the first X26 in like the early 2000s. I have the law enforcement X26, which I call the dumb taser, because it doesn't have a display. These are the smart tasers that, you drop them on the dock, etc. So yes, these are what private security should be using. Don't be using the Pulse for duty. And then when you can go back to the Axon website, that's the instructor credential you need.
Okay, wonderful.
You can't go by with the civilian instruction and think, oh, I could teach other. I'm kind of stretching here. I can take the civilian taser course and then develop public safety professionals. No, you need the law enforcement credential, because there's a reason why these are there's a reason why they have these two separate arms of taser. Specifically, is the liability, the training is different. There's just so much that goes into it that this is why I get frustrated with people in the industry in general, is people don't seem to care enough to know these differences. And I'm like, this is important, because if you get called up on the stand and you have a civilian instructor credential, yet you're sitting here teaching people in a public safety setting, like my Axon law enforcement class was taught by Las Vegas Metropolitan PD's taser administrator, the guy that goes to court for the cops, the guy that's actually in charge of the taser component of Metro's Police Academy. So when I went through my Axon course, my guy knew his stuff. But that's why I keep stressing on my channel, people need to go through the law enforcement side of stuff, because law enforcement and civilian instruction is very drastically different. They don't teach you use of force. They don't teach you the continuum. They don't teach you the escalation in the civilian courses. My law enforcement, my Axon course, they taught me where the taser falls in within use of force. And it's right between OC and your baton. Because that's why Sabre nowadays, and I pick on Sabre specifically because they're the most prominent pepper spray manufacturer, at least in the law enforcement and duty setting. Sabre makes pepper spray specifically to be CEW, ECD, I forget the C, controlled electric weapons, I think, and an electronic control device. They make pepper spray ECD safe for a reason, because it goes OC, taser, and baton, and then obviously our weapons. That's the escalation of force as I was taught, and I've kind of figured it out for myself as I've taken all this wonderful instruction that I have. That's the escalation. And in every course that I've taken in these less lethal implements that I carry on my duty belt, that's basically the escalation that everybody stresses in instruction nowadays. It's that escalation. It's OC, taser, baton, and lethal deadly force. That's the escalation. And whether it's my ASP baton course, my taser course, my pepper spray course, that's more or less been the agreed upon escalation nowadays. So that's why I keep telling people you need to take the law enforcement series stuff. Because if you take the civilian development instructor course, you're missing out on things that, quite frankly, you need as a private security professional.
So I'm glad that you touched on the difference between the two different courses, the civilian course and then the LE security course, which is actually the LE course. I'm glad that you really touched on that, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, let me see your thoughts on this, is I think it's a good idea to ask your taser instructor, where did you get the training? And if they identify as a taser instructor, it makes me wonder, are you taser qualified, certified, instructor certified, or are you Axon certified? So I think it's really important to ask the instructor what their certification are, because in California, it's not tasers are not regulated.
Right.
And you can just take the civilian taser course and then all of a sudden start offering taser courses for your students.
which is one thing that I personally chuckle about being next door in Nevada, is that is the one implement that is not regulated per BSIS.
Yes.
You folks have an OC credential. You folks have a baton credential. Obviously, well, every state, all the states that I've worked in, and I've even worked in California with the FAA. I've been out to California on government assignment. They regulate firearms. They regulate OC. They regulate batons. This is the one implement that your state board does not regulate. But yes, as you said, and as I keep stressing to everybody on YouTube, there is a reason there is a differentiation between civilian and law enforcement instruction.
Definitely. Hey,
So, are you
hey, is that
tasered?
Renee? Is that Renee Stringer?
I actually believe it is. Now that I've been conversing with her on LinkedIn a lot, yeah, I actually think it's Renee.
Yeah,
I know.
she actually, her husband hooked me up with the guy at Staccato. Really good resource to information. I know that she doesn't have a law enforcement background. She graduated from the police academy after speaking to her, and then she got into EP work, and now it looks like she's sponsored by Taser. That's awesome. But yeah, she's on LinkedIn too.
Yeah,
Um,
she's
okay, go ahead.
I believe an Axon instructor like me. I think she's a law enforcement, but she went one step further, and she's actually both Taser and Axon, so she can give civilian self defense instruction. She's credentialed in both.
I got you. I got you. Okay, so let's tie it up here, Mike. Where can we find you? Like your YouTube channel, and if we want to get trained by you, um, get some certifications in in Las Vegas. How do we connect with you?
Yeah, 100%. So my LinkedIn is I've got a custom URL for my LinkedIn. You could find me at Shieldle, which is spelled Battle Shield. So Shield with an EL added at the end of it. So SHIELDEL. It's a play on my last name. You can find me on my LinkedIn. My YouTube channel is the Professional Security Journal. You could find me making content just like Sean here. You can find me making content on YouTube. I'm on Facebook as well. You could find me on Instagram under the same name on my Instagram, the Professional Security Journal. That's my professional Instagram. Then I've got two Instagrams meant for friends and one specific Instagram for family. So I actually have three Instagram profiles in total, but one's my professional title. And yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook. As far as instruction goes, I am currently in the middle of researching instructor insurance for myself, liability insurance as instructor. So I haven't quote unquote gone into business for myself yet. But as far as everything goes, for now, if you're in the Las Vegas area and you want instruction, you can feel free to reach out to me. Probably, I'd say through LinkedIn or Instagram, and I'm more than happy to more or less talk to you one-on-one and develop a course for you. My fees are very fair right now, since I actually don't know what to charge people with, since I haven't done too much research in the market. I have had these credentials for a couple of years now, and I'm using them for the very first time tomorrow. I am giving a friend baton, taser, and OC instruction for $300 tomorrow. So I'm giving a coworker all of my credentials for $100 a credential tomorrow, because she got picked up by one of the local news agencies on their security team, and they apparently, the news agency security requires everybody to carry, well, everything but a deadly force. So she needs everything. So I'm giving everything to her for $300. So
Wow, it definitely
I would
feels.
say that's probably going to be my fees for now. But yeah, I'm going to be in the process of researching instructor insurance for myself. I will be registering with the Secretary of State here soon. I'm going to be getting a business license, etc. And because Nevada's not Utah, to where we're so restricted in Utah, I will be going into business for myself here pretty soon in Nevada, to where if you need instruction, I'm your guy. There isn't a market for training in Nevada as a whole, and I say that specifically because I am going to be focusing on Southern Nevada. Obviously, that's my area at first when I start up my business. But I'm more than happy to go out to Reno. I'm more than happy to go out to Northern Nevada if there's a need for it, and if the client is willing to more or less room and board me. If the client's willing to help me out, get me up there, I'll give people instruction all day long, because there is no market in Nevada. Training is non-existent, and that's something that's angered me beyond Nevada entirely. Actually, people don't care to become competent in their duty belt. I got all these private security officers running around with OC on their belt, not knowing what they're doing. I've got people running around with batons in their belt that don't know proper baton usage, proper baton strikes, And again, there's a security company in Vegas that but yeah, there is a competency problem within this industry. And now that I'm trying to into business, I'm trying to affect that change. There's no instruction. People don't seem to care, but this is important stuff. This is the stuff to where if you use your duty belt and you find yourself on the stand, can you articulate why you use that specific implement? Can you prove that you know what you're doing? Much easier to prove what you're doing with a certificate than having to, pardon me here, I'm being blunt and harsh. Can you prove it you know what you're doing by talking out of your butt? It's much easier to prove it you know what you're doing with your certificate. I'm trying to affect that change now.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much. I definitely agree with you. I mean, let's have the best of trainers out there. Okay. So it looks like, let me just go through the comments real quick. So Randy says, Mike, hit me up about insurance. Hit him up about insurance.
Cool.
And then Doug asked me, Sean, when is your post instructor course? I'm actually in the middle of developing that with Randy Nunez from Global Veterans. So guys, make sure that you contact Mike if you are interested in getting trained. Even I think it'd also be wise if you just start at like an interest list as well.
Yeah.
So that's all we have today. I really appreciate you, Mike, from being here. And,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and best of luck to your new adventures in private security. Make sure you guys like Mike's video, subscribe to his channel, and that's all we have. And we're looking forward to the comments in the regular comment section box below. Okay, take care, guys.
Take it easy.
Oh, hey, Mike, you have to say your goodbye. You say something like Mike, professional security journal. Let's hear it.
All right. So, yep, take it easy, guys. This is Mike here at the Professional Security Journal. Please take pride in what you do within our profession. Please stay situationally aware. Please stay vigilant. And other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.